You're listening to the Clutter Fairy Weekly, a weekly webcast and podcast brought to you by the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to participate in one of our live webcasts, please visit cfhou.com/weekly. You'll find a calendar of upcoming webcasts, as well as instructions for joining the Zoom meeting via the app or by phone. We'd love to see you. That URL again is cfhou.com/weekly. Now here's the weekly episode. Enjoy.
Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for May 26th, 2026. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we are streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can also share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start by talking about the weekly tittle from 2 weeks ago, which was called Declutter Your Past Selves. The assignment was to seek out any clutter left behind from the evolution of your interests and lifestyle. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook. Who let go of something from a former self this week? Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer, I don't know how to render it. I'm just going to read all the pronounceable parts of her handle. YouTube viewer TBRDGRL3449 shared this tittle report. We kept all our expensive camping gear for 15 years after we inadvertently stopped camping. We then set up the tent and other gear only to discover that after 15 years of disuse, stored in a hot garage, everything had disintegrated. We couldn't use it. Wish we had donated it so it could have been used by other people back when it was in great shape. This is helping us get rid of other top quality things right now so that their useful lifespan can bless others instead of waiting to end up in trash.
I love this answer so much when I read it. She has made my point exactly from her own experience. They held it for a long time, and then when they went back to it, it had disintegrated in place, and so it was useless. And she changed her perspective on saving things forever and having them get used now versus ending up in the trash later. The lesson learned, and it impact how she deals with her possessions from now on. So this is a really great insight and great impact, and thanks for sharing the story. I read it and I was just like, that is exactly my point. And I'm sorry you had to learn the lesson on all your camping gear, but camping gear in a hot garage for 15 years is not going to be unaffected. It's definitely going to be affected. And so she made my point exactly. And thanks for sharing it.
I wanted to share another comment we got this week, just because it was really relevant to the conversation we were having about keeping up with yourself as you declutter. YouTube viewer Diane Young shared this word of wisdom on the video of the last episode. Diane writes, "We change, and our personal possessions should change with us. I really appreciate this episode, a permission slip to let go."
Exactly. Our possessions should change with us, and if they don't, they overtake our spaces and make living now harder. And this problem grows as we live longer too. So I know it's hard when the season of life that evolved was so much fun or that was something that was really important to us, or our identity. It's easier to let go of seasons that were hard or painful. The fun ones and the ones with great accomplishment are much harder to let go of. But ultimately, it improves how you live in the space currently. And that's the point of all these discussions we have every week, right? So thanks for sharing, Diane. I think it was a great shortcut, permission slip to let go. And we need to acknowledge that our personal possessions change with us as we change.
So
thanks for sharing.
Usually at this point, we're giving reports. People who are with us live will tell us what they've done last week, or in the last week or two. Marcia sort of used this time to set an intention. She says, "I am sitting in a bedroom that needs to be cleared out by September to house our guest. I
Mm.
expect to be getting great inspiration today.
Oh, go for it. That's what we're going to talk about for sure. Absolutely. And it's a project that good for you. You know the deadline is September. Good for you for starting on it now so that you don't have to do it in a hurry and you don't have to wear yourself out trying to do it and you don't have to make all the decisions, under a very pointed, sharp timeline gun. So you can do it a little bit over time and spend a few months at it and hopefully it'll be easier for that transition to take place for you. Good luck. Come and tell us about it as you do it.
Jacqueline reports we've had house guests almost constantly for the whole month, and
Oh.
we have another guest coming next weekend, so decluttering has pretty much been on hold. But I did have someone come pick up another batch of jigsaw puzzles, bringing the total declutter to 67.
Wow, I can't even imagine how much space 67 jigsaw puzzle boxes took up. It must have taken up a huge amount of space. You must have cleared some closet or some floor space or something. Like it must be super visible with 67 boxes gone. That's amazing. Good for you, man. That's awesome. I love the continuous puzzle update.
Right.
It's become our community's, current evolution, project evolution that we're watching. It's awesome.
Brenda reports getting rid of a lot of wall decor and pictures, finding I like empty walls the way they are.
Right? It's less visually stimulating for sure. Some people really like busy walls and lots going on, but I think other people just find it more distracting. And Frankie has joined the
Has
right.
joined the
Frankie's
meeting.
in the room, right? He's coming to have a conversation apparently. Say
I,
hi,
I
Frankie.
I wonder to what extent that is a change that comes over time. I wonder whether
Mm,
people might like
the distractedness, you mean?
might enjoy a busier look when they're younger and
Mm-hmm.
move to a more subdued, quiet looking space as you get older.
But you know what? Penny's the exception to that rule. Penny
Hmm.
has always liked rooms with lots of art and lots of 3D things. Like she always uses the wall as a gallery space, and it always has an unusual collection of things in it. And it's fascinating how she arranges them, and clearly it shows her artistic flair. And so I think some people love busy forever, and I'm not one of those people.
Well,
I like.
she may enjoy the inspiration that the busyness provides.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's get go on to our main topic.
Okay.
Do you have a guest room that's also your home office, the gift wrapping room, and the craft room? Or maybe you live in a studio where the challenge is to carry out all your activities in one space. Today, we're continuing our room by room decluttering series by exploring multifunction spaces, how to make them work, or at least make them work better.
Mm. Not all the rooms in our house get to be used for just one thing, especially if you share space with more than one person who collectively have more than one hobby. When your space houses a family, if you have guests that stay with you occasionally, then you need space for that too. So think about all the rooms that get called into service for multiple functions these days. The obvious ones are the spare bedroom and the dining room, but other areas have been claimed for multifunction as well. Think about that kitchen desk or the little cubby hole that's in the kitchen that's sort of a, office-y type space in the kitchen that happens in larger kitchen where there's like an extra wall and they put up cabinets or a spare table designed for you to sit over there and be able to write while you're sitting in the kitchen.
Right.
The
Our
fin-
our previous apartment to this one had a long hallway that went into the kitchen, and they decided to stick one of those cubbies in there. And it was this enormous desk, and it had one teeny tiny little drawer in it. So it was mostly just
Super helpful,
a horizontal space to collect stuff.
right? To throw things on the way into the house. Yeah. So another one is your finished basement. It can be storage or it can be a whole lot more. Sometimes it's finished to be a room or a game room or something else. So often if you are in a part of the country that has basements and they're finished out, then it gets used in, it's usually a big room and it gets used for a whole bunch of things. The garage is a good space, although there are temperature management issues with it. It's not exactly a place you can hang out with. And, if you live in the South, you can't really hang out in the garage for long periods of time. So it depends on where you are. But some hobbies require, you know, garage or outdoor spaces to happen. Like you wouldn't want to do them in the house because of the materials. And so,
Right.
you know,
Fumes and
yeah,
yeah,
or
right.
chemicals or whatever, or tools, and so sometimes the garage is the space where it's safe to do the hobby or the project. There's a laundry room, mud room, utility room type things. Those usually function for several things. Another one is the open landing on the second floor. When you go up to the second floor, often there's several, there might be several rooms up there. And then there's this sort of generous open landing that everything opens out onto. And sometimes that landing gets set up as a room. And so it's this extra space that's not quite defined. And people make it into different things depending on who's living on the second floor and what's going on up there. But that open landing is sort of a bonus area that often gets set up to be a couple of things because it's so undefined to begin with. Closets can become multi-use spaces depending on how big they are. Some houses have really serious walk-in closets, and they can get used for all kinds of stuff. And so they're easy to set up to something else. A lot of people ended up doing when we were all at home during COVID and they were needed a quiet place to be able to get on Zoom meetings with their coworkers. A lot of people were doing that in their closets to try to control the sound. And yeah, it was. I don't think anybody expected closets to become Zoom rooms, but they did.
The the closet was our recording studio at our second to last place. We had a
Yeah.
huge walk-in closet with power and it was nice and quiet. It was on it it was on a wall that was I think shared with the spare room of the apartment next door, and so
Mm,
it was always quiet in there.
no activity against it. Oh,
Yeah,
that's helpful.
right. Hmm.
That's cool. Even a family room or a den, if it's an often used gathering space for all the family, then it ends up being a multifunction room by default because it's being used by so many people and they're using it regularly. And so then you end up setting up, everybody's focus for that room ends up getting set up in that den area. And so it's one that gets claimed for multifunction a lot.
Well, and in the architecture that's been popular in recent decades, just open plan areas, the kitchen slash living room slash dining room will tend to absorb any other functions that don't fit somewhere else in the
Yeah,
house.
yeah, because it's just a big room waiting to be defined, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Oh, excuse me. So, what are these multifunction rooms going to be used for? So, sometimes you're using it as a guest room when guests come occasionally. Your home office, especially if you work from home, you might want to be having a reading area, a library area, someplace where your books and you're going to sit and read books. It takes place. An art, a craft, a hobby room. Lots of people end up defining a multifunction room, and one of the functions is this is where I'm going to do my arts and crafts hobby. A media room or a home theater often happens in the den. In the family room, it becomes the media room and some other stuff while you're in there. Like we said, the Zoom studio, this is a function that when houses, they were not originally designed needing to have a Zoom studio. And it's become so much a part of our lives now that we all have some area where we can point the camera of the computer and they see what we want them to see in the background for the Zoom. Didn't have to used to deal with that. Now we do. Your kids need places to study. So often some part of maybe their bedroom gets set up as a study area or in the family room or the den or the offices, there ends up being a kids study zone. A music room, if you are somebody that plays an instrument or sings or needs to practice, do performing, if you're going to do some kind of performing, maybe it's something that the kids are doing. They're in band or they're in, they're learning some instrument as part of their schoolwork. And so they need a place to sit and do that kind of stuff.
Or theater. They need a place to run their lines.
Right? Exactly. A game room. If you are if you have one of a million gaming consoles, there's a million gaming consoles. That was never a part of my life, but it's certainly a part of the people that came behind me in age. Like a gaming console and being able to sit up with several controllers and play a game is a function that we didn't used to have to set up. Now we do because it's a big part of people's lives. You always need to have a storage space or an overflow closet. There's usually some space that needs to be designated specifically for storage. And so that's one of the multifunctions that gets absorbed in these rooms. Maybe you're somebody that does exercise, and so maybe you need a space for exercise or yoga, or you're doing dancing, whatever. Some place that's going to house the equipment for your form of exercise, or some part of a room that's going to house that stuff. Maybe you're into meditation and you need to set up to do meditation. The kids often need a playroom or a nursery. They need a place that's designated for their toys to be in, for them to sit and play with them. And I'm just thinking in my head of one particular, they had taken what should have been the dining room sort of bump out of the main area downstairs and surrendered it to the kids' room. So it was like, this is where all the kids' toys go. This is where they covered the floor with a rubber mat. There was all kinds of containers and things in there for the kids. And it's like the kids were at that sort of, elementary school. There was three kids, I guess, and between toddler and elementary school. And so you can imagine what the toy room looked like. It was that kind of stuff that they played with that I was cleaning up. But it was part of that great room where they were like, okay, we want all the kids' stuff to stay over there. Like that's going to really happen. But and they make an attempt anyway. And maybe you need a DIY workshop. So maybe you're trying to be able to play with the tools, or you're doing the repairs in your house. If you're into making modifications or doing construction related to your own house, then you need a DIY workshop. And I'm guessing that's going to be someplace where the destruction doesn't matter. So it'll be in the garage, it'll be in the basement, it'll be in a shed outside. It'll be somewhere that can absorb those tools. Some people want a gift wrapping room or a gift wrapping zone. And it's for those that treat gift wrapping like an art form, that it can be, if you're into it and you like to do fancy things and that's your fun and hobby, then having a space to do that is one thing that needs to get absorbed. Often we need an overflow pantry, and that's, we need places to put bulk purchases if we do that, or back stock if you feel like you need to have a back stock beyond what you use regularly, or when the space in the kitchen, it just isn't big enough for the pantry that you want to keep, and you need, like, what the space that's designated as pantry is not big enough. I just moved somebody who's like, yeah, this pantry isn't going to work. It's way too small. It doesn't have enough room for anything. And, so it was not a walk-in one. It's it's an open door with shelves in it. And there's lots of shelves, but they were looking at me like, no, we got to make space for this in the utility room. And so we're filling up the pantry and we're claiming part of the utility room as the secondary pantry. So sometimes what they built for the pantry and what you consider adequate are not the same thing. Okay, so let's talk about some strategies. You need to set up multi-purpose rooms, and it's all about creating zones within that room to separate one purpose from another. So you need to decide what's going to go there and how the space will be allocated. And I have steps for you. So the first one is identify the uses and the users for the space. What do you need to do in the space, and who all in your household is going to do it? So if the family room example I gave was, so they're gonna watch TV in there, and maybe the kids are gonna study there, and maybe mom is gonna work on a hobby in there, or dad is doing a hobby on the side. And so you got to create zones for watching the TV, the kids doing studying, and somebody doing a hobby in there. So you need to know what all those uses are going to be in your what the room that's going to be multifunction and who the users are going to be. And then plan how you'll use the space so it doesn't default to being a catch-all. A room that has a current purpose and that you use regularly is harder to divert things into accidentally. If you keep needing a dumping ground for stuff after all your spaces have a set purpose, then you need to look at a different set of behaviors to figure out why that's still a challenge. You need some systems to address the dumping ground habit if it still exists after you've defined all your spaces.
Well, I think that the tendency to become a dumping ground also might attach to spaces that are maybe ill-defined. Maybe you've defined it, but not clearly enough.
Mm-hmm.
This is our,
Haven't thought through all of the
yeah,
needs you have for it.
right. Well, or this is our arts and crafts area, but if we do anything wet, we have to shift to doing it over here. And if we do anything with the hot glue gun, we do it in the garage. And we also store some things here that are tangentially related to art project. You know what I mean?
Yes, I
The
do.
the definition
I've been in
gets
that room that you're
gets
describing.
really fuzzy.
Yeah. 100%. And so part of what you're doing here is you're setting up separate zones in the room. And think about how cubicles separate a space in an office and use that as your visual model for what I'm describing here. You want a zone for each purpose you have for the room. Just like a cubicle with, half size walls, define this is my working space versus this is the next person's working space. You want the zones to be defined that way in the room as well. And so you can define the zone with furniture, with screens, with boxes, with storage units, with bookshelves, anything to help you see the edges of each zone so you know where that functions area begins and ends. One time I reset a hobby room with a wet zone and a dry zone
Mhm.
because some of her work used water and some of it didn't. And each of those things needed different equipment, and mixing those functions didn't work. It wasn't good to have the wet work, the wet hobby work, craft work happening on top of the dry work. It messed everything up. So I ended up creating a wet space and a dry space and on two different tables. So I separated the equipment and the tools for the wet zone on one table and the other stuff on the dry table so that when she needed to do wet work, she could go sit there with all the appropriate tools, and the wet stuff that was happening on that table, and it was not touching what was on the dry table. And that was how we kept it separate. And she had never considered making those separate workspaces. She'd been trying to do it all in the same workspace and didn't, and was struggling with that. And so this was how we fixed it. Think through the reset function for each zone based on how often you use it and how much you disrupt it when you use it. So the zones will not need the same reset routine depending on what all the multifunctions are in the room. They won't all have the same, you won't use them the same, you won't use them at the same rate. And so you don't need the same reset routine for the whole room. You need a reset routine that is specific for each zone you create. And so thinking about that as part of the process, like when do I have to come in and clean up behind myself in this zone? And how is that different from when I have to clean up this part of the room over here?
Well, and the reset routines may belong to different people
That's
too.
that too, exactly right.
Might want to put, the kids who use it in charge of putting
Resetting
away
it.
putting away the video game controllers or the games or the toys or whatever
Or
in the
clearing up
zone
their
that is
study
set for them.
zone.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And putting things away that they've taken out as part of the process. All that would be very helpful. You want to choose the furniture that serves multiple functions in that room. And so the more uses that the room needs to serve, if you have a room that has, really more than two uses, like half of the room isn't this and the other half's that. If you have more things than one going on in there, then you really need furniture that can support more than one. And at least you don't need a huge amount of furniture in there because you're trying to use the space for more than one function. So you don't want to bulk up the furniture in the room, and the furniture that's in there really needs to serve a purpose. And so don't just park furniture in there because if it doesn't help with the functions of the room, get it out of there because nothing crowds a room faster than lots of furniture. And the more functions, the more activities you have to do in that room, the less furniture you want to be in there that isn't directly related to those functions. This is particularly, if one of the functions is a guest room, then you want to think about what's needed for a guest to feel comfortable. And would you really like to sleep here? Can they hang up their clothes? Can they open their luggage? Where can they charge their phone or put a glass of water next to the bed? Balance their needs with the fact that the other 360 days a year you'll be using the room for something else. This is particularly true for a guest room. But the person just said, they've had guests for a month, but then there's still 11 months that they don't have guests. And so there's functions. You don't have to define the guest room permanently if it's something that you can create for them when guests are coming. Like you can pull out the things and move stuff out of the way, and
Right.
you can keep the majority of the room for your regular function in there. But when the guests come, then you can move some things around and get things out of the way and provide them with a bed and a bedside table and a place to hang their clothes and a place to put their luggage. And so recognizing that the amount of the room that gets used may shift depending on when it comes into play and it's actually going to be used.
I want to share a comment
Okay.
just because it's timely
Per-
to what we were talking about a few moments ago.
Pertinent.
Yeah. M says ill-defined or well-defined, but too hard to get to. So a space that is defined to belong to a particular function, but is too hard to access.
Is probably not your best solution, right? Because
Right.
making it too hard to access means that it isn't actually being the function that you have defined it for. And so I think that one needs a rethink. Because if it's too hard to access it, it's also too hard to put anything up. And so you don't need that to be you don't need that extra burden of trying to use that function there. And so I would wonder if the space that is difficult to access is because of other functions in the room or just because the space is difficult to access in general. And if it is difficult in general, then I would not consider that to set up as a work zone or a use zone, but use it as a storage area. Think of it as dry dock for a boat that is hung up for the season. Go put things in there that you don't need to get out very often and that are not something you have to access on a regular basis. And think of it not as a use space but as a storage space. And then whatever function you define up there, define an active use space somewhere else so that you can actually get into that. Right, that you can make use of it. And then it's a flaw in the plan. If you create a zone that you have a hard time accessing, then it's not really a use zone, it's really a storage zone.
Okay.
Okay,
Go. You were at,
solutions.
yes.
Okay, so let's talk about some solutions for you.
Oh, wait. No,
Any,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did you talk about reconsider traditional spaces?
oh, I did not.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I thought you skipped over that.
Yeah, we did. You're right. So one more thing which was if you have rooms in your house that are defined, like the one that always comes to mind immediately for me is a formal dining room. We had houses built with formal dining rooms back when that was a thing. And you kept it set up as a formal dining room for 10 or 12 or 16 or however many people your room is built for. And and then you used it 3 times a year. And the rest of the time it sits there and doesn't get used. And so just because the floor plan calls it a dining space, dining room, doesn't mean it have to stay a dining room. And so you can redefine its purpose to something new and something that's more useful. If you have, if you're not entertaining like that right now and you have kids that are in school and you need those kids to have study areas, take that dining room out of there, take that big table out of there and set that up as, kids study space for the time being, or make that be your craft space and figure out another way to entertain when people come. I mean, it can be a multi-purpose room. You can use that dining table for your hobbies for the 300 days that you're not having entertaining with people. And if you set it up in such a way that you can then move that stuff out of the way when you're going to have a dinner party, when you're going to have the family over for the holiday, when, fill in the blank, the handful of days when you need a table for 16 people to come over and eat a meal with you, you can still use that room for something else as long as you can dial it back and use it as a dining table when they come. And so there are rooms that have names on them on the floor plan, and I'm here to tell you, you can ignore that. And lots of people do that with, they take what's supposed to be the guest room, and they don't have any trouble thinking, okay, instead of a guest room, I'll use that for my hobby. I'll use that for my second closet, fill in the blank. They don't have trouble with what's defined as the guest room, but other rooms in the house, we have a harder time surrendering their original purpose. And I'm just here to remind you, you own the house, you own all the rooms in the house, so you can make them be whatever you want.
Right.
And when you're trying to consider what you and your family needs in to be able to do in that house, all the rooms are available to you. So strip the labels off the rooms and just think your way through. I need to be able to do A, B, C, and D in this house. Where can I do it easily and most effectively? And it'll be, it'll allow you to see the space from a new point of view, and it'll be a good thing. You'll be surprised.
Em shared that in her small space, she moved the dining room table to the living room. She says, I can open the leaves for dining. Otherwise, it and two chairs are part of the conversation area.
Oh, perfect. And you guys can eat there, and then if you have guests, you can pop it up and make it bigger. That's good.
And she says it's a great space for the Christmas tree.
Oh, there you go. Christmas tree off the floor. Exactly. Perfect. That's well thought out. I think that works really well. Okay, so let's talk about some solutions. So in the guest room, I mean, in terms of setting up these multifunction rooms, for a guest room, if you're going to use the guest room and it's going to have guests and it's going to be something else, you're going to exercise in there. You're going to do the hobby in there. You're going to have a home office in there. Fill in the blank, right? So part of the way that you can make the guest room function easier is if instead of having a full-size bed, maybe you have a sofa bed. So you have a sofa in there that you fold out when the guests come, and fold back and get it out of your way when the guests aren't there. Or a Murphy bed, if you have room for a Murphy bed against a wall that you can pull down when the guests come and pop back up when they're not there. That's a way to share the space of a guest room for more than one purpose and make the guest one sort of spring into place when the guests are coming by pulling up the sofa bed or the Murphy bed. Art and craft storage carts are super helpful, especially those that have wheels, so that you can wheel it away in a guest room when someone needs to sleep. If you're sharing your guest room with a hobby, then you're going to want to take over the room, and you should be able to use most of the room for it, but you need to be able to shrink yourself back when the person actually has to be able to get onto the bed and have their luggage and move around the room. And so that means that you need to design your arts and crafts storage in such a way that it can be moved out of the way, rolled into a closet, taken into another room when somebody needs to be able to move around in the room better. Being able to make that stuff portable, easily portable for you and for them, makes it easier to share that guest room function with something else that's more active and has a lot of stuff. Think about under the bed storage. Under the bed storage is a way for things to end up in the room that they're going to be used in, but they don't use very often. So things you're not going to use very often, or things that are, it's temporary for a small minute or a small season that you're going to have to pull this stuff out and use it. So things that fall in that category of I want to be able to do this in this room, but I only do it once a week or a few weeks. Like I think of Christmas and the prep work that you get for Christmas, right? You get out all the gift wrap that's for Christmas. You get all the bags out. I'm thinking of my stepmother's upstairs landing. She has this trunk in which all the gift wrap material is stored. And when Christmas comes around, she pops up a folded table and all the gift wrap stuff comes out of the trunk, and she sets up this gift wrap station that sits there for 3 or 4 weeks. And then when the holiday's over, we pack it all up and it goes back into the trunk, and they take the table down and they're done. And so it's one thing that has to come out for a short period of time. And so finding that underbed storage is one of the places you can do that. My stepmother is using a trunk in what in essence is a den area. So the trunk stays, but the contents stay contained until it's time to use them. And so it's a way to share the space for more than one function up there.
Does the trunk serve any other purpose? Is it used as a side table or
No, and actually
no, just
it's in this little nook area that goes around behind the stairwell a little bit. So it
okay.
isn't a practical space for anybody to sit in or use.
Yeah.
So it's out of the way,
Yeah.
which is good. And but it's easy to unpack it and pull that stuff into the room from where it is. And so
Gotcha.
it's worked out really well. You can also include in a guest room, you can use a day bed that has drawers underneath it. Sometimes those day beds have built-in storage at the bottom. Or you can install storage, like pull out drawers underneath a day bed. And that lets you have a smaller piece of furniture rather than a full-size bed. Again, it's another bed option that doesn't take up as much room as a regular bed would. And maybe can give you a little bit of storage along the way. Room dividers are super helpful if you need some kind of a screen or some kind of a hanging curtain to divide a space visually. It helps with that. You can create a visual break in the room by hanging something or standing something that is tall and solid and opaque to create a space from one room to the next. If you're using a home office, you can have some office furniture, and maybe a corner of the office furniture can double as a nightstand when there's a guest there. So where the table runs up next to the bed, you can clear off that side corner next to the bed when you're having a guest, and that way that they don't need a separate nightstand to go with the bed. That you can just clear off a part of the desk and let them have that part of the desk while they're there, and then reclaim it when they go home again. Ed named one.
I I don't think that was I don't think I came up with that.
You didn't?
No.
It's listed as a cloffice,
Yeah, I
which
don't know
is
where we
the
got that.
short version of office
Closet
in a
office.
closet, closet office, right? And so I did notice this happened in COVID a lot. Like people were working from home and they were desperately trying to be able to work without their kids running around interrupting all the time. And so a lot of people went into walk-in closets and set up a little tiny, table space and their computer and worked in there. And, that I'm sure that was painful and uncomfortable because the airflow in a closet is always, it's almost always so bad in there. So it would make me miserable to work in a closet like that. But I got the, the desire and the necessity of being in a space that could be separated, the door could be closed, and it could at least be a little quieter than all the people in the house at the same time. And so I have seen people set up little corners in larger closets to be an alternative desk area, and it can work. You can make it work if you needed to.
Let me share a couple of comments before we go on.
Mm.
Uh, Marcia, who said at the beginning she's working on clearing, using our show to inspire her to work on clearing her guest room, says the bed has been cleared.
Yay! Good job.
Next step is to clear the floor, currently a goat trail around the bed.
All right, you
Two
got some work to
boxes,
do.
two boxes emptied and moved out of the room into hallway. We'll take it there now after the podcast.
Yay! Good job. You're doing good. That was a good, opening day. That was a lot accomplished all at once. Good job.
M asked about those carts that you wheel away. Where is away? Seems like my cart only fits where it is.
Uh, well, so we are
That
assuming that you can park it inside a closet
right.
or in that room or in another room. Like maybe you have to temporarily wheel those carts out of your guest room into your own bedroom for the duration of the guests being there, or into your own closet, or down into the dining room, or like down into another room where they're not sleeping. So it would be a temporary addition wherever it goes, not intending to be there long term. But You're just trying to move it out of their functional space for their
Yeah.
stay.
Out of well, or if you're not talking necessarily about a guest room, but out of out of the way of whatever other functions you're trying to
It's happening in that
manage
moment.
in the same space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Go on.
another one is a drop leaf table. And this is, I don't remember who said it earlier, but they mentioned, having the table that stays folded down for two until they need it for something else. And then they can pop it up and make it be bigger. And so that is a great way to you see a lot of tables like that are designed for small apartments where, the back half of the table will fold down and you have the front half of the table open to eat on, but it can also be dropped down and then it's like only a foot wide in total.
Right.
And, if you open it all the way up, then you get more of a full size table. But any table that either has leaves in it or has the sides of the table fall down separately means that you can adjust the size and space of that table for what you're going to use it for and when you need to use it. And it doesn't always have to stay up. And so it's a way to adapt furniture to not have as big of a footprint in the room until you need it, until you need the space bigger. So the term here that I've used is mezzanine space. And what I really mean is you want to carve out extra function in space that has a high ceiling. So think about storage going vertical on the wall or in cabinets that are taller. A cabinet that's dedicated to one purpose versus a second cabinet dedicated to a second purpose. So you can have, if you have tall walls, if you have really high ceilings, then you can make use of that vertical space. And so sometimes we end up with storage, like I'm looking at my file cabinet over here, like that's waist high for me, but there's, you can, and it's under a window. So I don't need a full
Right.
height, cabinet there because there's a big window there. So other storage places where you have really high walls, you can use very tall bookcases. You can use really high cabinets, taller cabinets that you wouldn't necessarily use in another space, as opposed to using sort of standard height that might be waist high or a couple, two or three drawers high. If you really have high ceilings, then it can support taller furniture, and you can use that vertical space as a place to add capacity and separate. This cabinet is for this function and that cabinet is for that function. And I will say, and when you do tall stuff like that, that's cabinetry, it's going to be full of stuff, then you want to get somebody to secure it to the wall so it's not going to just tip over by accident. But if you can do that and get it set up, then it's a way in a space that has really high ceilings to create zones by cabinet, by tall cabinet. And it's a way to create space that can be zoned for your use. And just remember that the more purposes that you've assigned to the room, the less space per each purpose can be allocated. So if you've got to do 6 things in there, I mean, I'm thinking of the hobby room for somebody that is into 6 different hobbies, and
Right.
they often don't, the supplies don't cross over. Like I do yarn and I do quilting and I'm making that up. I do paper, right? And so there's hardly any intersection between those. And so creating a space, if you have a lot of functions that need to be in the room, that means that you get less allocated space for each one. And so that affects how much stuff you keep and how much space you allocate for them. If you're more actively doing one of several functions and less actively doing some of the other functions, like this is the guest room slash some other function equivalent. The guest room gets used a tenth, a 12th of the time of the year, and the other 10 or 11 months that it isn't being a guest room, it's something else. And so you can give more space to the thing that happens more often and less space to the thing that happens less often. And that's true if, in an arts and crafts room that's got a whole bunch of hobbies going on, maybe you set up the hobby that you do the most often with a larger amount of space and you create a lesser space for the other functions that you want to be able to do in there. And when with recognizing that that may shift over time, you may set it up that way this decade, and 10 years from now, you may be doing it different and you need to reallocate the room. But recognizing that you can give space to each thing and you can consider how much and how often you're doing that thing as you're assigning the space to it. And it will help you create zones that are more functional for what you're actually doing. Okay, that is what I have to say about it. So, who has questions about specific multifunction spaces that they're struggling with? What's happening out there around your spaces?
Well, Marcia, who's working on her guest room right now,
Mm-hmm.
says, I am struggling with empty boxes that had contained electronics. Kept the spare parts and instructions, telling myself I have not needed the original box yet. So I think we need to just
Perfect.
pile on and tell Marcia we're right there with her when she says when she reminds herself she hasn't needed the original box yet.
Hasta luego, baby. How it goes. Yeah, I mean, there are people who save the boxes because they're going to resell it, that they're going to collect. But, if you're not somebody that is collecting and expecting to resell your electronics to somebody else later, then no, you don't need the box. And truthfully, for me, when I buy something like that, I keep the box for, a quarter to make sure that the object is actually going to work and isn't going to break because it's, a lemon of some kind. And once it's passed that test and yes, it's fine and I'm still using it, then I'm happy to let the box go. Like it's something that you can, we set it aside when it's brand new because what if something happens and we have to take it back? But then that moment passes and we never go back and grab the box and get rid of it later. So now's your chance. You're getting rid of the boxes later and it's time to let them go. Not even the TV box. Yeah. I mean, most of the time what movers do with TVs and particularly now that they're flat, they wrap them like artwork. They wrap them up in moving blankets and strap them to the wall of the moving truck. And so, a smaller one they would probably put in the cardboard box that is for artwork. It's the right width for them to slot, a TV thing in there. So you don't have to keep a TV for box for 15 years so that you can use it again when you move. I think I get the inclination to do it, but now our flat TVs are sort of like a large piece of artwork. And so it's not exactly the same kind of thing. And you really don't have to, you can just box it like any other piece of art. And, those moving blankets are thick and they will strap them up and tape them down, like tape the blanket onto the thing and then, strap it up against the wall and it'll be fine. And so, yeah, you don't have to worry about it as much as you think.
M says, I have a computer and two appliances with lifetime warranties. I have needed the boxes for shipping back for replacement.
Okay. So, if you have a couple of them that you want to ship back occasionally, all
But
right.
when
But
push
not
comes,
everything's going to come like that, right? Like
no,
not everything's going to come with it.
and if push comes to shove, you can go to half price boxes or the similar kind of place in your
Mm-hmm.
area that sells boxes and shipping supplies and get everything you need to ship back the thing for replacement.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Um, they will still honor the warranty. If it's a lifetime warranty, they're going to honor the
Yeah, even
warranty.
if it
It
doesn't
doesn't
come in
have
the
to be in the
box.
original box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the warranty is not affected by the box usually. It just makes it easier, right, to ship it.
Right,
But
right. Yeah. With something that has multiple components, yeah, the pieces of foam might be just right
yeah,
to
yeah.
pack it all in the box.
But I think that, that's going to be the exception instead of the rule.
Right.
Well, it sounded like a good excuse. Em, you're funny. Yeah, we all want to keep boxes because we all love boxes. Like we are all addicted to our boxes. I totally get it. And it's super easy for the boxes. It's just, it's a cardboard box full of air that is taking up valuable storage space to keep a box. And so it really needs to have a very good reason that makes sense long term to keep a box.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
and the and
there's not that many.
counterbalancing your great reason for keeping the box, we can come up with quite a few reasons not to.
Not to keep the
Like
box.
the boxes leach chemicals into your into the air of your home, they gradually turn to dust on
They
their
attract
own,
roaches,
and they attract roaches and mice and silverfish and all
silverfish.
manner of creepy crawlies that will gobble up the box and leave behind their own debris.
Yes, I've seen
Um,
that. I've lived that. I have shoveled that out for people.
yeah.
100%.
Um,
Absolutely.
May suggested flatten the boxes for storage and retape if needed, but
Mm.
M says, excellent idea. Well, she says, excellent idea because once an electronics box is crushed, it will never be the same taped back together, making it easy to toss on the spot. That is a good point. If you disassemble the box, you'll never get it back the way they had it at the start.
I love that. That's hilarious. Oh, we always have this discussion about boxes in this room. Everybody is into their boxes, and whenever we start talking about boxes, everybody's like, "But the box is so good." I have
And
thought that myself. I totally relate.
and they put a lot of work into the design too. I mean,
Mm.
gosh, Apple products, their boxes. There's actually an aftermarket for Apple product boxes
Oh my gosh.
because they're so well
Well
designed
designed.
and
Hmm.
and probably spectacularly expensive to produce too.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure. I've used lots of little iPhone boxes opened up as and like taking out the insert
mhm.
and use them as drawer organizers because they're so they're so sturdy and they're like an inch or two tall, and so they fit in shallow drawers in offices and desks and things. And I use those iPhone boxes a lot for sorting containers, storage containers inside drawers.
Jane says, I've gotten more selective with boxes. Now I just keep a small number of boxes well suited to decluttering
There you
into.
go. There you
Yeah.
go. That works.
Um,
Absolutely.
Marcia says, I remember after my fire, cardboard did not survive. However, the Rubbermaid totes protected the contents even when the heat caused the tote shape to distort. Bye bye cardboard, bye bye bubble wrap. Um,
Good for you.
Gail, I remember the time you shared that stacked cardboard in the garage created a rodent habitat.
It
Yeeks.
did. Oh my
Yes. Oh
God.
gosh,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Yeah.
that was my friend in Dallas that lived in Dallas at the time. And they had a two-car garage and they did not park inside the garage. And so the one of the bays of the garage, they would just throw shipping boxes out there. And it was just this huge pile. And when we were clear, like they were going to move, we were clearing it out. And we got about two-thirds of the way down and it had become substrate mouse house. Like it had disintegrated and it had been tunneled through and it had been peed on, and it was like it had like started its own disintegration process at the bottom of the pile, and it was quite disgusting. And yeah, it's like, yeah, this is not like they were saving the good boxes, but they just were building a mouse house out there. That was what they were doing, and we got to clean it out, man. Luckily, it was not the season where the mice were indoors. Like that was their winter habitat, and so when the weather got there, they had exited. Like we didn't see any mice that day. Thank God. I would have lost my mind if we had, but we were still shoveling out last winter's habitat into the garbage. It was a thing.
Um, Dawn says, my husband just tossed several old phone boxes and I had to resist saving them from the trash to repurpose.
I know.
Good for you,
Don't.
but you did resist.
Good for you. And now you don't have to worry about them. They're gone forever. There
Brenda says, refilling moving boxes with donations.
you go.
Refrigerator now has room for ice trays. Countertop ice machine is now donation for someone's summer.
Excellent. And
Nice.
just in time, right?
Exactly.
Good job. That's
Okay,
exciting.
we are running out of time, so let's
Mm.
talk about next week. We will be back at the usual time next week, Tuesday, June 2nd. And we're going to talk about clutter and emotions. We're still mulling over exactly what angle we want
How to
to
define that one? Yeah.
take this time around, but next week will be about clutter and emotions. Gail, why don't you give us the title?
This week's title is Make a Multifunction Space Work. This week's assignment is to improve the usefulness of a multifunction space in your home. Identify a space in your home that's struggling to serve multiple purposes. Make a list of the uses to which you'd like to dedicate the space and the household members who are going to use it. Plan how you'll use the space so it won't default to serving as a catch-all. If you don't have a multifunction space, but you have trouble finding space for everything you'd like to do, then spend time this week reflecting on any spaces in your home that aren't used frequently and start a list of ways that you might reclaim part or all of the space to serve another function. So, one, plan better if you've already got multifunction happening. Two, if you don't have a multifunction space happening, maybe you can look at ways that you might be able to create one to support what you want to do in the house. And then, come back and tell us about it because we always want to hear about it.
If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from our audience, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
And Ed, I was realizing yesterday as I was reading some emails that some people had asked me a couple of times, how do we find out about surveys when they get issued?
If you are on our mailing list,
So cfhou.com/subscribe.
right, you'll get a notification there. If you're a YouTube subscriber, you should see a message there. I don't know how much YouTube pushes those messages, so I'm not sure how reliable that is.
So that's a good reason to be a YouTube subscriber so that you get notified when new content goes up, when comments go up, and when surveys go up.
Right.
Okay.
We also announce it to the meetup group. So if you're a member of the meetup group,
So there's a post in the meetup
get
group.
an email. Well, no, actually, we send an email whenever there's a new survey.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right.
Yeah.
So that's a couple places for you to interact and find out about the survey. And then
Yeah.
if they go to the website,
And the website, there's always a link to the survey on the event post. So if we are doing a survey for the show, there will be a link to it on that show's post.
yeah, so go to the events page and then you can look at the a particular event and see if there's a survey attached or not. And that's still true for the surveys that have gone before.
Yes.
You can go back and do old surveys if you want and add to our collection of data around that topic. So just scroll through past events and click out to see the surveys there and answer them if you want.
Yeah.
We get notified when new answers go up forever, so it doesn't matter that you're answering a survey that we gave a year ago. We'll still get notified about it. So it's a way for you to interact, and that's one of the things that we encourage people to go do is look at other people's answers to the surveys too, because we can't cover everything that everybody writes, but we get such great material in our surveys and people give such thorough and well thought out answers about how they're experiencing their decluttering process. And so it's a good way for inspiration. If you'd rather read than watch videos, you can go look at our survey results and see what your community members are talking about and experiencing right now. And they're very helpful.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate you come every week. I'm happy to be back and I will see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.